Ian, how are you? Good to see you, my friend.
And you, Al? I'm doing well, thanks. How's yourself?
I'm doing well, hanging in there. The smoke has cleared, knock on wood. But here in California, and of course, all up and down the West Coast, we're still dealing with the fires. But I have to say, gratitude all around. Lots happening in the world, and you're very familiar with it because you're in the mix as well. So, how are you doing? How are you doing up there in Vancouver?
Well, we got the Californian smoke exported to Vancouver. We got it like California and Oregon and Washington gave us the smoke, so we lived through that. But all told, in Vancouver, we're doing good. Yeah, no, we're kind of
Well,
into the habit of work from home, etc., etc.
Well, I'm really excited to connect with you, just in general, because I enjoy our time, and it's going to be virtual for a while, as you know. But you have been busy on a variety of fronts, and one of the things that you've done just the other day is write an article which I found very interesting. I learned a lot, and I'm really interested in diving in this with you. And of course, if there's other things you want to share, but this new SEC disclosure rules, what it means for the CHRO, can you provide a brief overview of your thoughts there? And again, we'll put the link to the article in the comments. But yeah, tell me why this was important to you, given your work with your clients there at Visier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, uh, I know DEI is a huge topic, and we've been commenting a lot. But for today, I thought this is one of those announcements that's kind of, I think it has an equally large impact on people analytics functions in HR, and it's one of those things that just kind of slips out if you're not in the right channels or you're not paying attention to the right places, you wouldn't know what has happened. And
Yeah.
this has been 3 years coming, so I think it is a huge benefit to any people analytics group that are looking for resource, looking to establish their position in the organization, looking to help their CHRO actually play the role that they want to play. Um, if I give you a little bit of the history, it's been brewing for about 3 years. There's sort of two clear camps that have been pushing towards this with the SEC. There's one camp which is the sort of standard human resource measures group. They coalesce around the ISO, and they published
Mhm.
last year a set of standards. Um, Interestingly, there's also an investor body, BlackRock, the big institutional investors, people who've got billions to trillions of dollars deployed in the market and are trying to understand, is my money being put to good use? Is the organization being competently managed? Those two groups have been advocating that human capital should be part of an SEC disclosure for many years. And
Mhm.
that's built and built. The SEC announced in 2019 the intent to change the rule. They went out to consultation. The employer groups came back and said, but we don't, there's no single measure. Like, my business is different to their business is different to their business. And those forces led the SEC down what I think is a sensible route for the SEC, to be honest, to say, okay, you have to disclose, but you have to disclose things that matter to your business. They use the word material. They're moving to that language a lot more in all of their regulations. Like, does this measure, does this element change your business in some way? Do you look at it from a management perspective to say we're doing well, we're doing badly, we have a risk? Again, cost, risk, return, those three basic elements. So if it has a material impact, then we believe you should be disclosing it. And lots of people are looking for the SEC to say, tell me what I should report. And they want it to be a very prescribed. That whole element you said around dealing with uncertainty is very much present in this new disclosure rule, because there is no prescribed report A, report B, report C, like there is with EEO. But at the same time, they've set up a framework where those investment houses, the debate around what matters, what doesn't matter, becomes really, really important. It becomes vital that the people analytics group are in that debate, and it's vital that they're enabling their CHO to be part of that debate. Because you will
Yeah,
need to report something. You'll
Yes, and sorry to interrupt because I 100% agree. You'll need to report on it, is what I heard you. And I want to talk more about that need and what that report would contain, specifically. Because if I'm hearing you correctly, it's going to take. It's kind of this state, and I recall my father when I was young, probably 8, 10 years old, wrote, "Manage myself, or someone else will." And I think that might apply here, is that organizations either take the lead on this or someone else will tell them what to do. Is that your feeling about this? Because you wrote in the article that this is the time for people, analytics teams, and CHRO specifically to rise up and take ownership of this challenge / opportunity, as opposed to be dictated to downstream. So, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, my thoughts are, I'll break them into two categories for you because I think it's a brilliant question. The first category is just sort of the internal element of all of this. As you might expect, I've gone out to a series of the folks who use and work with Visier on a daily basis and said, so what does this mean for you? Every single one of them had gone to their SEC group, the legal group, the reporting group, the group that are responsible for that, and said, first of all, did you know? Second of all, here's all the work we're doing. Third, please do not put anything in a disclosure without running it past me first. They're making sure that they've got a stake in the proper articulation of that information. Because what's potentially going to happen is that reporting body is going to just ask the group, so they're going to get in a room, they're going to work out some measures, they're just going to come ask HR to export the information from an HRS. They're going to put something into a disclosure that the CHRO then has to stand beside. And if there's no kind of connection to that group and what you're doing and why you're doing it, then that's a really broken process. It doesn't make the HR function look very good. In my perspective, it puts the HR group at risk. It's the reason why you need domain experts doing people analytics, because people data is not like financial data. It doesn't have the same kind of binary behavior of up is good, down is bad. The answer is it always depends. And if you don't have expertise,
I was just going to make a joke. Really? Tell me more about that. Because it's actually really, really important, because you and I have been in this world for like 20 plus years, depending on how you break it down, each. So the idea that, hey, here is your measure, like, just for context, organizations have had trouble just agreeing on headcount. Is it end of period headcount? Is it average headcount? Which then affects turnover calculations, which affects a lot of others. So just to nail down how human capital metrics are agreed on is a very, very difficult challenge. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if, however, to your point, the CHRO has a very proactive, defensible position, then their ability to report and instill confidence in the investor community and their employees and others will be heightened. So is that a worthwhile goal, or what? And just to reframe the question, what does success in this realm look like to you?
yeah.
If
So
an organization is reporting well, and what does it look like?
So one of the places that we've been looking, and I think is sort of a basis for good practice, is environmental, social, and governance reports. Invariably, in those reports, there are voluntary statements around employees, and you will, again, DE and I is it's front and center, but often those reports will and should, in my perspective, contain some statement about how the business is approaching increasing and supporting and maintaining a diverse representative workforce. There's great business evidence as an investor. There's a lot of business evidence that buying habits are altering. People will make a decision based on a business's social stance, and the whole kind of whitewashing, just making a great statement but not actually following up in practice, organizations are far too transparent these days, whether they want to be or not, but through social media, through employee behavior, it's a lot more clear. If you make a public statement, everybody's going to expect and be able to inspect whether you are following up with action or not. For me, I share the excitement around DE&I. Again, I just finished up a post on the new capabilities we're adding to Visier, but I think success is that the D&I conversation is actually part of the investment decision. The ability to manage vacancy rates. And do I have enough people? Can I get enough people? Do I have enough of the right people? Am I growing enough people? Will actually be part of the investment conversation. And the CHRO's board position will not be the engagement survey and how much has pay changed. It'll actually be how are we really enlivening and enabling the best of the people who work with us, like that whole making a community of people perform and experience work in a way that is really meaningful. So, success may be way beyond my retirement, but success is that people and finance are equal players at the board table.
Yeah. I get really excited about this, and I also am rooted in history insofar as we've had a couple swings at the bat on this. I cited Firms of Endearment, which is a book that's been out for a dozen years or so, which highlights firms like Patagonia and New Balance and others who have done very well by managing people first strategy. The idea that there's going to be regulations and rules that are going to inspire organizations to actually shed light on how they're managing the workforce is something that I certainly have been working towards, and I know you have. So what I'm going to ask, if we can bring up a quote, and this is a quote from your article, which is taken, correct me if I'm wrong, directly from some of the legislation that at least is currently being written, or the rules rather, the SEC filings.
Yeah.
Any human capital measures or objectives that management focuses on in managing the business to the extent such disclosures would be material to an understanding of the registrant's business. So translated, you can't just manage the workforce in this secret box anymore. That there has to be an elevated understanding of how you are acquiring talent, developing talent, how you're appreciating diverse groups. Is that your understanding as well? And what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, no, that is my understanding. And I think trying to make it specific. So one of the reasons they wrote the rule that way is we use the example of absence rates. We have a number of organizations that are high volumes of hourly people. Anytime there's absence, there's backfill with a contractor, or there's overtime for somebody else. So absence has a direct drive on their costs. These businesses run at 2 or 3% margin, so anything that impact costs is material. So for them, it makes sense to be on top of a lot of the value they've had from their people analytics practice, and what they use Visier for is to understand, refine, share, drive behavior. They are improving the bottom line for the business through their ability to manage people. Other players we talk to, like technology people, absence is irrelevant. Like the work still gets done. People just work different hours. So it really is that the nuance of what makes sense to my business.
Now, I have noticed in the wake of COVID-19 that some people analytics teams have really thrived. They've elevated. They're really not only at the CXO level in the boardroom, but they're to the board of directors, and they're really influential now, and the demand for those leaders who can build and sustain this capability has heightened, at least from my perspective. There are others, however, that have just fallen by the wayside. And I have seen some commonalities among the ones who have excelled and the ones who have fallen by the wayside. And one of the key critical success factors, if you will, is that they have had a tool to stage and analyze data in place, and they've amplified the effectiveness of that platform. Visier obviously is one of those. So it's not so much as a pat on the back. It's just a matter of fact that there are technologies that are really well suited to solve that particular problem There are others, organizations that have tried to go it alone and have had start and stops because they didn't understand the unique nature of HR data, like we just touched on, or they just haven't had uh, the enhancements that are brought out through a focused technology such as Visier. So if you want to pat yourselves on the back as a company, go ahead, because I know you have done great things on service of the community and obviously to your clients as well. But what are your comments around that notion that the need for these people analytics technologies is a non-negotiable to enable this kind of reporting and enable this kind of conscious decision making to formulate talent strategies? I know your answer, but I want to hear it in your own words.
So I think you started to describe it really nicely, and we've been trying to work out how to describe it ourselves. People, it's your mental model for what people analytics is in the business. Often when people analytics started, it became something that was done, and done meant that you had a dashboard. Again, if you hear a lot of the commentary about, oh, we do people analytics, we'll give you a dashboard, we'll give you some island of information. And a lot of the way that the groups that we see fail, they build islands. So I've got a D&I dashboard over here, I've got a talent acquisition dashboard over here. They're either built using tools or in the groups. And so those islands don't come together. And it's also about the question. So if you conceive of success as being able to produce a single chart against a certain question, great. But the questions keep coming and keep changing. So if you conceive of it as a technology which supports you to answer the questions as they come from your business, then you need this layer. You need a discrete technology that assembles all your data, allows you to inspect it, allows you to share it. You don't need one dashboard for one thing, because otherwise, again, we frequently hit the organizations like, yeah, we built 5 dashboards. We've now got a request for another 40. We don't think this is the right approach. And it's like, you're absolutely right. You need to think of it as a single delivery layer. And it's a technology. We're having lots of conversations with other analytic players, seeing the need to bring their analytics together with other analytics. So it's not even that it's an HRIS plus an analytics. It's actually, there's a lot of really smart niche components around skills detection, where the richness of what you want to understand involves talent acquisition, involves learning, and that all has to live somewhere. And Visier is one of the platforms that saw that vision, built towards that vision, enabling it for our customers. And as you say, everybody I went to in our group in terms of SEC, are you worried? They're like, no, totally not worried. This is a real opportunity for me to elevate what I'm already doing, because they had the tooling.
It's my head and my as I think about listeners to us right now, it's like, okay, that all makes sense. And I might be an HR business partner, I might be a people analytics manager or director, and when you talk about SEC, it gets kind of esoteric, and it's like, okay, investor relations, that's the C-suite, that's all that, but that has to be connected. And so how do you advocate that connection be made? Because, at least in my experience, the top-down approach, yeah, it happens sometimes. There's an enlightened leader who says, this is what we're going to do, and makes it happen. Other times, it is a coalition that's built at the kind of middle manager level, the manager director level, sometimes VP level, that says, okay, there's a gap here, and they sell it upwards. So are you seeing the adoption changing? Is it going higher up in the organization? Does it need to go higher up in the organization? What are your thoughts there?
So the groups that we see being successful actually often start at the top level in the organization. So, they don't focus on reporting HR activity. They actually focus on supporting business unit leaders with insight. Am I getting my hires on time? Am I going to have enough people? How are my costs changing? Who are my best people? Which great people did I lose? Like, those are all everyday questions. The other piece that we're seeing in it, and it goes to that alignment. If I think about a board level measure and I need to change it, I need every manager, like my 1,500 managers, to understand that what they do here rolls up to a score that goes to the board. And that's, again, the whole thing around DEI. If you're not putting measures and goals and targets and sharing the data with the people who make the decision daily, you're not actually leveraging your what can make change. It's only when you put in front of a manager, like the last 3 people you hired were male and white. For each one, they can probably come up with a reason why. It's like, well, we didn't get great applicants. Well, we didn't get such and such. Well, on an individual basis, anecdotally, when you say, is this truly the best candidate, they can always defend it. But when you get the pattern over time, that changes the conversation. It changes their awareness of the bias. It changes their decision process. Because DEI is actually about changing the decision process for a lot of people who not aware of their bias. They're not being bad for the wrong reason. They just don't know it. And until you can educate, shape, show, involve, you don't drive change where you need it. So for me, that it's not necessarily adopt here. It's actually all the way through. So then you get alignment, then you get common action, then you get change.
Yeah, I love it, and I hope to see that more. I believe, many CHROs, and this is not a criticism, it's just a call out, did not grow up. They're 20, 30 years professional, right? So they did not necessarily grow up doing people analytics, certainly how it is in 2020 and beyond. So they have to rely on subject matter experts to educate them. But I do see a heightened level of openness, because in your article you said, well, people analytics has been the top priority, 1 or 2 priorities of CHROs for the past 5 years. It's been that for the past 20 years. You and I know, and it's been incremental gains in this front. It's been kind of, of course we need more data, but really the understanding of how to bring it to life has been lacking. But now there is a heightened level of understanding of how to bring it to life, which leads me into what's likely going to be our final question. Is Visier just did one of its largest product releases in its history, according to their press release. And I want to give you an opportunity just to share a little bit about what that means from your vantage point, because this is now, I'll call it your baby, because I know you have massive, I don't say massive team, but you have a lot of people working on this. Their Visier, and the creativity that you all have employed has been exemplary. So, I just want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that product release and how it's going to benefit organizations the way we've been talking about.
Yeah, so I encourage people to come look at the website and sign up and kind of get into the details of the features. I think there are 2 main drivers for what all that was, what we call speed to value. So one of the things that people won't have seen before is the way in which Visier builds an application. We are literally from raw data through to secure delivered insight, every piece of the stack in the cloud built hand in glove. So we have a tooling level, which means I can write a metric. I don't write code. I've never written code in my life, but I can describe a metric in the application. I can put information against it. We're opening that up to more and more people. So we'll have partners being able to deliver applications for us. Our customers start to get even more rapid speed to generate change. That's one key piece. The other key piece is what we talked a lot about, like getting to the end user, getting to the general business user, quick, easy, well-described consumable data. So we push to email. So somebody can describe a unique data answer in our application. They can then push that out to a user through email, or they can schedule, a regular, here's your monthly update. Like look at who left, who joined, who's due a pay change. They can schedule that. That will go into the manager's inbox. It'll open up for them, show them the answers, lead them back if they want to do any further inspection. So really, people talk about liberating your data, and Visier does that. The third piece, which I'll just feature quickly, is we also added time-based cohorts. This was specifically accelerated for the DE&I case, where I can look at Latino women who became managers 3 years ago, and I can follow their survivorship. So I can lock to that cohort back at that point in time 3 years ago. Then I can see how many got promoted, how does their pay change compare to their peers, How is a performance distribution compared to their peers? I can do this really rich insight, which isn't, as you say, isn't just a measure of like what's my overall average representation, but truly what is happening for the groups that we care about most and make the most difference in building diversity. And how do we reshape their experience? How do we make sure it's working well? Because you could see, a fairly consistent ratio of Latino women who are managers, but it might be caused from people coming in and coming out. So we have the same number coming in as going out, so we maintain a 25% ratio. When you do survivorship, you can see, well, we started with 300. We're now down to 150 after 3 years, and all of them left. That's not success. We're not getting the results from our program we need. We need to rethink the activity. Again, you often ask me, Al, what's success? And success for me is that data is used to drive the strategy, not to justify it after it's been decided. That's really where people analytics, where we see it working well, where we actually understand it well. That's what it's doing. It's how you do HR, not something you've done after you've done HR.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, I celebrate what you're sharing more than I can express, right now, because the idea that data, and obviously there's examples in the social political realm right now where data is not being leveraged, utilized in the way that it can and arguably should, and there's costs to that in terms of how people are treated, how they're affected, how strategies are formulated, and how organizations perform ultimately. So, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the work that Visier as a company is doing. So, as we start to wrap up, any closing comments or calls to action? I know you're going to be at our People Analytics and Future of Work conference here in a week and a half or so. But what else is going on? How can listeners, viewers learn more about you?
Learn more about me by following me on LinkedIn. I am running a Thursday debate. We had a great contribution from some really smart folks in the field around whether it's okay to predict gender as part of a talent acquisition analysis. And so it was, again, find out on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, follow Visier. We have an Ask Visier community. And we're here, again, supporting Al, supporting the community to understand how we do this well, how to grow. So I'll just say, check in with both of those and ask us your questions. We are passionate about what we do. And we love helping move the field forward.
Yeah, and not only are you passionate about it, you're great at it. So again, congratulations to what you've achieved, and all the best up there in Vancouver. And yeah, I hope to see you in person before too long. Who knows when it's going to be, but in the meantime, we'll be meeting virtually like this, and I still enjoy it. Not as much as grabbing a beer with you and shaking your hand, but in due course, my friend. In due course.
The beers, when the beers come back into play, they will be extremely sweet. So I look forward to that day as well.
Yeah, yes, they will. All right. Well, you be well. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me.
Take care.